Hey, Scott Sambucci here over at Sales Qualia, and oh man, I learned and relearned one of the biggest lessons, one of the most important lessons about running a company and this past weekend, and I wanted to share that lesson with you. So first of all, I just want to sort of preface the lesson here is why it's so critical to find a peer group whenever you're working on something that's really, really hard. So let me explain. I'm gonna put my bag down here and stop walking, make it a little easier for you and a little easier for me. So what I've got here on my little slip of paper here is a list of 10 lessons that I learned on Saturday. And specifically, the reason that I wanted to share this with you is that these 10 lessons are lessons I never ever would have learned if I hadn't created a very small peer group for myself on Saturday. So on Saturday morning, I went out for a trail run. So a friend of mine, Kelly, and one of his friends, Katy, they're both also doing the Western States 100 this next year in June. And Kelly's done this race 3 times. Twice he's finished under 24 hours. Katy did this race about 6 or 7 years ago. And they said, hey, we're gonna go out to this area called the Canyons. We're gonna do a bunch of up and down, run for about 26 miles. Would you like to come? And I was like, sure, why not? It's only 3 weeks after my last race. Let me go ahead and go. And I was a little bit worried about going because it's only been 3 weeks since my last race. And secondly, I thought, well, why don't I go ahead and go? Because this will give me like a jump start. I'll be ahead of everybody else that's doing this race because we're still 4 months away. And a good 26 mile run, that's pretty stout. And here's a couple things that I learned being out there. First of all, number one is what I thought was a push, what I thought was going to be an extra long run, an extra bonus, turns out to be exactly what everyone else is doing. Because while we were out there on the trail, Katy and Kelly know tons of ultra runners in the community, and we ran into at least 10 other people also doing the Western States this year. Now there's only 369 people in the whole world that are doing this race, and we ran into like 10 of them while we were on the trail, including one guy who flew from Pennsylvania to California just to run the trail this weekend so he can get more familiar with it. So here I was thinking that, oh, I'm doing this bonus run for myself and I'm gonna be ahead of where I normally would be. Guess what? It's just table stakes. This is what everyone else is doing. That was just lesson number one. So I'm just gonna rattle off a couple of other lessons that I wrote down that had I not joined this little group with Kelly and Katy, I would have not even known that these are lessons that I should have learned. Number one, so turns out Kelly is gonna be doing a training run in May, end of May, and it's what I thought was gonna be a 50K run that week. He's gonna do a 50 mile run. So just by being with him and having that conversation, now I've elevated my ability to improve my training that I'm going to be doing. He's going to do an over-the-top run in June, which means going over the top of the first crest. It's a 3,000 mile climb. He's going to do that in June. I was going to do that on my own, but now I've got somebody to do that run with. He talked about a certain nutrition product that he's testing out. He said, hey, you might like it too. He and I have very similar diet, very similar philosophy around nutrition. Didn't even know about that. We got to one point of the trail that we were on, a place called Volcano Creek, and once you get to the bottom of this creek, you have to climb up about 2.5 miles to almost 3 miles back up. It's about a 1,500 foot climb, and it's a hike. I mean, that's all, like, it's literally a hike. You can't run it. And here's the thing I learned from him. The first mile out of the creek is much more steep than the last mile and a half. So having that course knowledge, knowing that that first mile is the toughest, if I can just get through that first mile, take it easy in that first mile out of the creek, then it does even out. I didn't know that. I wouldn't have known that had I not run with him. Katy was talking about race strategy on a certain part of the trail, that if you can conserve enough energy and run this other section, you can pick up a ton of time down the road that you may have lost by running in the canyons. I learned that Poison Oak is already out. I wasn't looking for it. It's the end of February. It's now March. I didn't think Poison Oak was out yet. Turns out Poison Oak is out. That's kind of important to know if you're running on the trail. I also learned from Katy that on the way to the trailhead, there's a little winding highway that goes out to a place where we parked. There are other trailheads, and 50 yards down those trailheads, there are porta-johns. Those are also, like, that's important things to know if you're gonna be out there on the trail for quite a while. And the last thing I wanted to share is that having that peer group, having Katy and Kelly with me, is that was important because they gave me a little extra push. So we got to a point in our run, we were about 11 miles in, and I was feeling pretty hard. It was feeling pretty hard, and I was ready to turn back. It was 11 miles out, and I was ready to go 11 miles back. We had planned to do 25 or so. So we were at 20, we would have been 22 miles. And I said, you know what, guys, I think this is enough for me. I'm going to head back. And they both looked at me and they said, well, it's only one more mile to the top of this climb. We're going to go up to this place called Deadwood. Then we're going to turn around. So I looked at them and said, oh, okay. It's only one more mile. But here's the thing. That one more mile was another mile of climbing up. That one more mile actually meant 2 more miles in my total run. So by the time we finished the run, I got more climbing in. I got 2 more additional miles I wouldn't have gotten in. So we ended up running close to 24 miles when the goal was 25-ish, 26 miles. So pretty close to goal. And so all of that happened because I had this little group. I have this community of people who are also doing the same thing that I'm doing. And this is so important. This is why I wanted to share this lesson, because as you're out there running your startup or you're out there leading your team, it's so easy to get insulated. It's so easy to get isolated in yourself. And it was such an important reminder as to why when we do coaching with our clients, yes, we do lots of individual coaching. We help teams build plans. We do one-on-one calls. We have team Slack channels where we just help teams individually. And we also help our teams by getting them together 3 times a year for a 2-day workshop. We do calls in a group format throughout the week so other teams can hear, hey, I'm struggling with this thing, or I'm working on this project, or oh, I tried that strategy, here's how it worked for me. So all of these things I do every single day with our own clients, and I've sort of forgotten how important it was to apply that to the work that I'm doing every day in training for these races. So I really wanted to share this lesson with you that I learned over the weekend on how important it is to find your own peer group, because that peer group is going to teach you stuff. That peer group is going to elevate your thinking. That peer group is going to help you realize that what you thought might be the best that you can do is actually not the best you can do. You can push that extra mile. You realize that, oh, that what I thought was the extra work is actually what everyone else is already doing. So that's my lesson for the trail here over the weekend. So find your peer group, find your community, be willing to get yourself in a place where you can get your mindset elevated, you can get your strategies elevated, you can learn what systems and skills you need to learn in order to move to that next level. So that's it for now. I'm pumped. I'm ready for the week ahead. Scott St. Bucci signing off.